Welcome back to Retroschaft and welcome to my garage. I'm here again working on the MG. In the previous video I finished the brake assembly on the rear axle, and in this video I'm going to paint it and basically make both the car and the rear axle itself ready for a refit onto the car itself. So that means painting the rear axle, refitting the leaf springs, the shock absorbers. I still need to do a few things on the car with the fuel lines and stuff like that. So at the end of this video, not at the end of this day, mind you, I'm not going to finish all of that today, but at the end of this video, the rear axle will be on the car, or no, ready to go on the car, and then in the next video we'll put it on the car and test it for the first time. So we'll hook up the drive shaft, the gearbox again with the rear axle, and test if everything works fine, because I'm going to replace the oil and the rear differential gasket. So I'm hoping there are no leaks, but we'll see. We'll see. So for the past week or so, I've been thinking about how am I actually going to paint this, because it's a very difficult part to paint. There are a lot of nooks and crannies, as you can see here, and then there's this side of the rear axle, and then there's also the other side of the rear axle. So it would be beneficial to paint everything at once, and I am quite happy that my idea actually works, of putting blocks underneath the wheel studs, and this will allow me, as you just saw, to actually turn the rear axle upside down as I want and as I needed to turn upside down to paint both sides of the axle and paint all around these tubes here, which is obviously going to be beneficial and more time efficient than doing everything in two parts. So yeah, let's give this a go. Even though I've been waiting for this moment for quite some time, it's still a bit scary to actually go ahead with it. But let's see how this pans out. I think it's going to look very good. So this is just the first layer, but it's already looking so good. Like if you compare it to the other side, look how much cleaner the freshly painted part looks, which is obviously just normal, but still it's very nice to see that hard work pays off. Yeah, I'm happy with that result. I don't know about you guys, but I love painting with a brush a lot more than painting with like a spray can. You can go into a lot more detail with the brush. It's slower, but at least I think it's a lot more fun. And also, in this case, the paint is a lot stronger, so that's an extra benefit. I'm going to finish this off, and I'll show you the end result in a few minutes. And this is the end result. I am actually very, very happy with how it turned out. I'm still going to put some more layers on here, like there's now one layer on there. I need to wait a bit until this dries just enough to put another layer on there, which I'll do tomorrow. And I think in total I'll do 3 layers. That's what the paint producer recommends for the best rust protection and weather protection and everything. But in the meantime, this is basically how it will look in the end, and I am very, very happy with that. It's a classic case of no one will ever notice that it looks like this or how it looked before. But just for me, knowing that the rear axle does look like this is just something, it's just nice to know. And I am going to be satisfied with that. And that's basically what it's all about. Now remember, this episode is all about making the rear axle and the car ready to refit the rear axle. So I am going to come back next week to finish that part of this rebuild. But for you, it's just going to be in a few seconds. So yeah, see you next week, or see you in a few seconds, whatever you prefer. Hello, it's Saturday again, 1 week later, and today we're continuing work with the rear axle and also the rear of the car. So yeah, I'm going to let the oil out of the axle and then also do some things on the back of the car to make it ready for a refit. I plan on putting the axle back on the car next week, so hopefully today and tomorrow we get to finish this part of the project. Also, the weather is actually quite bad today. There's literally not much else to do than work on a car, so that's good for me. Last week I finished the rear axle. I gave it a few other layers of paint, and I think now it is fully painted, very strong, and ready to well, to look good and go back on a car, except for the back plate and the gasket between the axle and the back plate, the axle housing and the back plate. And we're going to refresh the oil as well, as I just said. So that's kind of the plan for today. But I'm really happy that this came up very well. So that's a nice full cup of oil, which means that at least the axle has been oiled well for the past few years, so well, it's good to know. So the next step is going to be to undo all these bolts, and I think these should come off quite easily because they've been basically in and around oil for a very long time. So I already undid some of these bolts, so that's why those 3 were very loose. Yeah, this is going quite easily. Gotta be a little bit careful with not dropping any bolts inside the oil bucket, because that would be, well, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. Cardboard under here, and I've also got a screwdriver with me, so let's see if we can pry this off. Okay, this is a little bit harder than I expected. There we go. Okay. That's not too bad actually. So a little bit of dirt dripped onto the gears. I'll clean that at a later point. I'm not going to do anything with this, like I'm going to leave that as it is. But yeah, this is pretty much the first time ever that I've seen something like this from the inside in real life. So yeah, pretty cool. So let's give the inside of this a clean first. So this is definitely looking quite nice already, but we still have some cleaning to do here, some rust removal, a bit of sanding, and then some removing the old gasket here as well. So that's going to be the next step, and getting this out is going to be important as well. So that's what we'll try to do now. So this side is nice and clean, as you can see. I've cleaned the sides here, so there's a clean mating surface for the new gasket. And the inside is also very clean as well, no oil residue. The only thing I can't get out is this one, so this is still, yeah, I'll still have to see what I can do about that, because it needs to come out to fill up the axle with oil again, so it's not an option to leave that in there. But next up is cleaning this side and giving it a new layer of paint. I definitely don't need this to be as clean, or I definitely don't need the outside to be as clean as the inside, but I just don't want any loose parts or too much rust to remain on there. I just want to have it clean enough to put a new layer of paint on there. So I think this is good enough for now. I'll go over it with a piece of sandpaper, and then it's time for a new layer of paint. This actually turned out quite well, so I'm happy with how it looks. And the next step is obviously to give it a new layer of paint. So, and as you know from the first part of this video or the previous video, I can't really remember, this is one of my favorite things to do. I'm doing it with quite a small brush to work very much in detail. And obviously this will need a few new layers as well. It will definitely need a few more layers, because here and there you will be able to see like the metal still poking through. But for a first layer, this is definitely good enough. And now my attention will turn to the back of the car. I don't know if you will be able to see this, but down here, no, this is absolutely not visible for you guys. I'll try to bump up the lighting a bit, so this is quite a high ISO rating, so it might be a little bit noisy, but right there in the middle you can see that there's a little bit of rust poking through on the body, so I will probably repaint this entire rear bumper. And there are also some parts under there, like the front side of the fuel tank is a little bit rusty as well, so that will be I'll treat that as well to make sure that everything in the back there is ready for another probably 30-40 years of driving, maybe more. I want this car to be solid. Now that everything is like gone under there, the rear axle is here, so I have the room and the place to do all these things, so I want to do them as good as possible and make sure that the car is just solid to drive in all kinds of weather. Also, because it is so dark back there, I won't be able to film the repainting of the rear bumper, but it's not that interesting anyway, so we'll keep it with the rear axle for today. And yeah, probably after I repainted the rear bumper, I'll get something to eat, and then I'll see you in the afternoon. I just had lunch, and right before lunch I got a few more things done on the car, so we'll go over that in a second, because I found an old light and it lights up the back of the car quite well, so it allows me to show you what's going on back there. Here we are. You can probably hear the ticking sound, which is actually the this fuel can thingy being filled up by the fuel pump, because I need to change one of the old fuel lines that go right out of the tank through the filter to the petrol pump, because it's all rusted through, and I've got a new one right there, the copper one. But in order to not make a mess when I'm changing that, I thought it would be best to empty the fuel tank, and this is basically the easiest way to do that. And also I repainted like the underside of the back bumper, and it's actually looking quite good. It's glossy black, and you can see here, this is how it basically used to look, and this is like the side skirt of the car. In some places, like I don't know if you can see that, but under here there's still kind of a paint difference. The red comes through here and it's black here, so if this side here looks good in daylight, I might actually do the side skirts as well. So yeah, that's something that I'll have to look at a later point. This could be a fun project to do on a Sunday during the summer. So this one is almost full. The level is about here. Got another one here. So let's change them. I'll turn off the fuel filter first. Fuel pump going off like a madman. That means that the fuel tank is empty. There's nothing coming out here anymore, so I'll turn it off. after emptying the fuel tank, I actually had a little bit of trouble with getting a rusty bolt off, and this is one of the things that I lost so much time with when taking this car apart, that was rusty bolts, and it annoys the hell out of me. And I've come across one more rusty bolt. It is going to be one of the last, but it is annoying me so much. It's unreal. Like, I'll show you in a minute. So this is on the back of the car, and there is a rusty bolt. Let me get under here. There is a rusty bolt right here, and it holds this fuel line, and the fuel line goes to the tank here. And I need to get it off in order to change this fuel line with the one that you see there. And the rusty bolt won't come off, and I'll have to continue working on that tomorrow, and I'll probably take the angle grinder to it because it's, as I said, it's annoying the hell out of me. So I'm going to call it a day for now, but I'll be here again tomorrow, and then we'll continue work on the back of the car because I still have a few things to paint. And I also would like to assemble this rear axle, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that this weekend, but fingers crossed, I'm working hard. Oh, and also I cleaned the mating surface between the rear axle housing and the back plate, so that is going to be ready for a refit. Hello, welcome back. It is Sunday afternoon, it's not Sunday morning. I did quite a lot of things on the car today, a lot of little things that weren't really interesting to show in the video. But right now I am finally ready to put the back plate back on the rear axle. And I thought that you might want to see the end of that because you've been on this journey with me for the rear axle for quite some time now. That's going to be the last thing that we do in this video. After this, I'll show you what else, the other progress that I made on the back of the car, and then next week we'll build the rear axle with the leaf springs and everything back up, and we'll put it back under the car. So that's in store for the next episode, but now let's finish this and then we'll end the video. Okay, so I've got my gasket here. All the bolts are down here on the ground. I have some alcohol wipes with me to wash them first, but I think I'll put some oil on the surface here first to make sure that the gasket sticks. And it's also always a good idea to have some oil on the gasket itself in order to make it seal a little bit better. So let's try this first. So I put some oil on the gasket as well to make it seal a little bit better. And then it's time to mate the back plate again with the rear axle. This is going to be, well, maybe a little bit more difficult than I anticipated. And I quickly took the liberty of putting the brake lines back on as well. These are actually the original brake lines. They were black, full of dirt, but I managed to clean them very, very well, and they basically look like new, and they give off a perfect color against the black rear axle now. So yeah, this is looking very, very nice, and I'm happy with the result. So next episode we will finish the rear axle and put it back on the car. It's going to be a very exciting episode. That's like the first major part that will go back onto the car. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Thank you very much for watching in the meantime. I hope to see you again in the next episode, and yeah, take care.